pre-eaten. Can I just say, if I ever have to witness Ariana Grande ever crying like that ever again, watch and trust there will be some issues. Me and this girl, we've been through it together. We go back to the victorious days. So don't ever, if I ever see her crying like that again, I will be on national news, I'm afraid. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. What's going on? What's good? What's happening? I was reading through some comments and replying to you guys, and a lot of you, and some of my favorite comments that I get to see is that where these videos kind of feel like we're on FaceTime and that type of thing, and it's really comforting, and I really enjoy those comments. So I thought, let's do some more waffling. Let's sit down, get cozy, get the pajamas on. I'm in my pajamas. I'm not getting dressed. You think I'm gonna leave my depression pit? Absolutely not. Anyway, I really enjoy the comments when you guys find kind of comfort and calmness in my videos. So I thought, let's sit down and I'm gonna waffle to you about the good things I like about Pretty Little Liars, because I feel like if someone stumbled upon my channel, they would be like, oh, this girl hates the show. Oh, she hates it. Oh my god, I got an eyelash in my eye. Call the police, call an ambulance. Because to be honest, like, I was kind of born to be a hater. You know, I've seen a lot of life already. I've seen enough, to be honest. So I just will judge everything and everything now, to be honest. But like, also guys, I'm not mean, okay? I'm not mean. Let's get that out of here. I will just hate because I don't like seeing people happy. I'm joking. I'm actually joking. I'm joking. I'm like in that phase. I'm just entering my 20s. I'm 21 in 3 months. Oh, and I'm seeing a lot of people from school who kind of bullied me or like had an issue with me, would tease me, whatever, live really happy lives. And I'm like, I'm going to become a hater. I think that's where my hatred has come from, being in my 20s. Went off topic there. So yeah, not that I complain about the show. It's not even me complaining about the show. It's just kind of saying like what I don't like and what I would have changed and the things that I would have taken out and things like that. Because I really like the show, and this show, you know, I watched it when I was 12. And I still watch it to this day. I'm 21 soon, so what's that? 9 years. Oh, look at me. Mathematical genius, to be honest. So yeah, it's been a big part of my life, and I really, really like the show. It's kind of brought me up, and things that I like kind of surround that. And I don't know, I really like the show, and everything that I always kind of complain about is always from the goodness of my heart. Everyone, I really do like the show. But obviously, like, if you come across my channel, you're probably like, wow, like, she's a hater. And like, sometimes in my replies or comments, loads of people are like, oh wow, you're hating today. Like, yeah, sometimes I can't hold back. But yeah, I really, really like Pretty Little Liars, and I don't know, it was such a big part of my life and a big part of my teenage years. I thought it would be, therefore, let's sit down, let's put the hatred aside for a moment, which is a really difficult task for me, to be honest, because can I say this? My New Year's resolution for 2 years has been to be less nice. Because hear me out, I'm very much a people pleaser, and my entire life I've had bad things happen to me because I'm a people pleaser. And you know when you're kind of too nice to people? So for the past 2 years, that's kind of why I've delved into more like, let me complain a bit more. Let me hate a bit more. But I feel like today, let's put that aside and let's talk about the good things that I enjoyed about Pretty Little Liars, because there were really good things about the show. I really do like the show. It, to me, my best friend, I've known him for 14 years, something like that. We always say that, you know, TV shows like Pretty Little Liars, even though a lot of it is very much trash, not to get all American here, but I love trash TV. I love it. I really do. I loved Big Brother back in the day. Celebrity Big Brother. I was there. I really was. That's the kind of TV I really enjoyed. So Pretty Little Liars, I really enjoyed because it's like trash TV, but it's so good. Do you know what I mean? Let's start because I've been yapping for 7 minutes and we're barely into it. Know what you made me. One of the good things to come from Pretty Little Liars, I think, is Mona and Mona's whole A reveal. Mona was a fan favorite throughout the show. I'm doing a rewatch right now. It's rewatch season. And to be honest, like, you would never think at the start of the show that Mona would become such an iconic character for the show. And honestly, without Mona in the show, it's actually really boring. Like later on, you know, after the whole A reveal, because I truly think, honestly, she's one of the main characters of the show, because the way she kind of single-handedly takes the show on her shoulders for periods of time during the show is so cool to watch and really kind of a breath of fresh air. Because I'm not gonna lie, sometimes the liars were a little bit annoying me and I was like, I need a break from these girls. I love them to bits, I do. I need a break. Do you know what I mean? To have Mona on my screen and for Mona to be that kind of breath of fresh air, even though she's kind of a villain, it was really, really nice because we got to look at other characters and Mona became so much more than just like Mona. Her character development, yes, she was obviously still a villain in the end, but like how that progressed through the show and her battles with kind of regaining the game but also trying not to get obsessed with the game but still trying to be in power. So the real fight about taking control of everything and what she created, I really, really enjoyed. And honestly, like, a lot of the show I enjoyed because Mona was there. So I think Mona is one of the really, really good things to come out of Pretty Little Liars. And also, I obviously know that her relationship with Hannah was not good, was very toxic, but I did like seeing that friendship. Even after the whole A reveal, I did like to see that pairing, especially because I mentioned in another video that with Hannah, we got to see her kind of like friendships that weren't the liars. And I really, really enjoyed doing that because, you know, we kind of just stick to the same group. And I get it because they're the main characters. But sometimes I like to see different, you know, differences in that. And so seeing Mona and Lucas kind of team up and things like that, and then the whole friendship with Hannah and stuff, I think was really interesting and I really, really enjoyed it. But also, guys, Mona's A reveal, personally, I don't think it's the best. I did prefer CC's, as in the way they did it. I don't prefer CC being A or the plot holes that came with it and what we were told, but the way they revealed CC to be A is my favorite. But with Mona, I love that reveal so much because just the line, the dramatic, I found the gum, and like how everything kind of clicks into place with, you know, we find the gum, like wrappers and then the cashmere sweaters, and all of a sudden the penny drops and it's like, oh, Mona's A, and in her little black hood and things like that. I just think like Mona is such a girl boss in the show and such a breath of fresh air, and I really, really enjoyed learning with Mona. And obviously this is not me saying that Mona was a, you know, perfect character who did no wrongdoings, because she's literally the complete opposite. To have her, I think, was so vital for the show, and I think it might have kept a lot of people watching just for Mona, which is why it's quite disappointing that The Perfectionist that Mona was in didn't really come to anything and got cancelled. I really like Mona's story. And I kind of like how it comes full circle as well. That's another thing I enjoyed. Obviously at the start she's A, and at the end she kidnaps Alex Drake, who was A at that time, and kind of takes back that control, and she's now back in charge of the game. I loved it a lot. So my next favorite thing was kind of like the symbolic things that they did. And this is like the dolls, the black hood, the red coat, the Alison masks, the Ayla, things like that were so good. I'm so sorry. Like the fact that we had the redcoats wearing Alison masks Marnie King, you were writing properly. You were absolutely writing. Things like that was so cool because it added that creepy like atmosphere and tone to the show. And I think it was so good. Like, you know the scene where the Alison mask has like melted and it's kind of like burnt? Wow. Truly, I was there. Shakespeare has been very, very quiet since that dropped, to be honest. I think that stuff, like the red coat itself, like red is kind of Alison's colour for a little bit with the blonde curly hair. Like, how significant was that? Like, anytime you saw any glimpse of red coat and you saw that, it was just so good. It was like, oh, I'm paying attention now. Do you know what I mean? But also just the villain itself. I think Pretty Little Liars, creating A as a villain is one of the best villains in like teenage drama shows like this, I think. Because to have this symbolic character who we associate always with the Black Hood, I think is super, like they did the villain so well. And the fact that like for years during when Pretty Little Liars was airing, but also afterwards, people would write their sentences with a capital A in like each like word where it had an A. Things like that, I think the impact that A has had not only on the show but on like the wider kind of fan base and things like that, I think is really, really good. And I think they created such a perfect villain to represent this. It's interesting, and I think it's clever how we have a faceless villain, but it's also the main symbol of the show and the main symbol of like people were dressing up as Halloween during Halloween as A and things like that. And the villain itself, I think, was so perfect, and the way they set A up to be this dark, mysterious character. We never hear them talk. Like when we see them without their face, they're quite swift in movement. But also just like there's scenes after each episode where we see like a glimpse of A and like what they're doing, you know, like when they're eating a sweet or they're writing something or whatever. Even just things like that, learning about A through just A themselves, through their hands. We see their hands most of the time, and we learn about things through their hands and what they're doing. Are they unwrapping a sweet? Are they, I don't know, writing something? Are they drinking whatever? So to kind of put the audience in the point of view as A at the end of each episode to see what we're doing and as first person is so good. I'm so sorry. Like, you know the ones where like A would be like we are A and the camera's like following A and we're speaking to this person and the person's looking at us. How freaking cool is that? I'm so sorry. Like the way they've done that, the way they've included A, the way they've created A, and the way they gave us glimpses of A outside of what they're doing to the girls. I love it, and I think it's perfect. And to this day, 9 years later, I'm still, a Black Hood to me is Pretty Little Liars. And I think for this generation, for my generation who grew up with Pretty Little Liars, we'd always represent a Black Hood with A. And to have that staple in a whole generation, I think means that you've done it perfectly right. And there's nothing that I would have changed about the way they did. Okay, not the reveals, but like the way they portrayed A. Do you know what I mean? Because I think it was perfect. We always knew someone was like pulling the strings behind the scenes, and we always knew A was there and A was watching and things like that. I think honestly it was perfect. But like, yeah, going back to like the symbols, like the dolls being such a important thing throughout the show as well. And obviously the dolls, like Mona starts the whole doll thing where she builds, you know, like a mini dollhouse in the lair. She dresses the dolls as like the liars. And there's several references to A treating the girls like puppets or like dolls. So for that to continue through to Cece, who builds a literal dollhouse and gifts them dolls here and there of themselves, I loved it. I loved it so much because dolls, to me, although obviously you grow up as a child with dolls or whatever, they're really creepy. I find them really disturbing and really uncomfortable. So to have that as well just added to that uncomfortableness, but also the symbol of it, and the symbol of like this main thing of like the dolls and the liars. Do you know what I mean? And they were always referenced to as dolls. I think it was perfect. I really do. And then obviously we have that yellow top that Alison wore the night she disappeared. And that kind of goes into itself, because we have the yellow top, but we also have this statement of the night Ali disappeared. The fact that we have the yellow top, which is a huge, like, everybody knows that that's Alison's top. Like, out of the show, in the fan base, on Twitter, whatever, online, we know that's Alison's top, because they drilled it into us so much, and it became such a significant thing. And whenever anything came up about it, it's like, oh, the night Alison went missing. And even the statement of like the night Alison went missing was such a thing that always carried through the show. Like, outside of the show, whether that's YouTube videos, or I'm seeing a lot on TikTok recently actually as well, a lot of viral Pretty Liars tweets as well recently regarding the night Alison went missing. And it's still such a prominent thing, and it's still such a big like mystery still, I think, because although we know what happened, it's like the night she went missing, and it's just very like daunting, I guess. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So I think the show, to have created so many of these like not symbolic, but like symbols of the show, I think was perfect. And I loved it. I really, really, truly loved those things. And just when we saw those things, it was like so much was going down. Along with obviously being the perfect villain, like I said, my next point is villain Alison. So pre-Alison disappearance, the character of Alison was perfect. In terms of her being a villain, was absolutely perfect. And there was so many shows I watched when I was a teenager that's, you know, the target audience are teens, and it's like drama, kind of same category as Pretty Little Liars. No teenage bully or villain ever lived up to what Alison was pre-disappearance. I think everything about pre-Alison was so good to set her up, but also the way that we learn about Alison only through flashbacks, I think added actually a lot of weight, because although we had never met Alison before, we felt like we knew her, and everything that we saw of her was always bad through flashbacks, and she was actually a really cruel and mean person. So the fact we had never met her, but we knew what an utter villain she was absolutely perfect. And I really do think that pre-disappearance was kind of like the best time for Alison. I really, really enjoyed Alison pre that, because when she is revealed to be alive, I would have actually not had brought her back, because I think Alison had so much of a staple in Rosewood that, you know, she gave people goosebumps and people never wanted to talk about her. And through her disappearance, the town had actually kind of grew their own spine and outgrew Alison. I don't think she had a place there anymore. And that's why when she comes back, her character really does kind of fall from what she was, because I don't think you can ever outdo pre-disappearance. But just kind of like the cockiness of Alison, and although obviously what Alison did to everyone was very mean, and I'm not endorsing it, but like it was so good for a villain, and it was just so like, this is a proper villain. Do you know what I mean? And a proper, like, she had the whole town on like a string, and she really was, you know, in charge of everything. And it was honestly like the power she had, even for a while after her disappearance, and kind of the fallout of everything, and the way she kind of tied into everything and had relationships with people we didn't even know and things like that. And even like the night she went missing, having so many people involved in that, it's like she is so powerful. And I loved her pre-disappearance, and I think they really got her character spot on pre-disappearance. I have no there's nothing I would change. I loved Alison pre-disappearance in terms of like the villain she was, and I think it was so cool. And I think ultimately that's why obviously when she came back it was really disappointing for a few people, because we didn't have that character anymore. But I just think that proves that they did a good job with Alison pre-disappearance, because the fact we were so disappointed is because we knew what they could do with her character, because they had done it. Do you know what I mean? Okay, so my next point is the Halloween episodes, specifically the Halloween train episode. The Halloween episodes, they truly know how to write those episodes. Like, there is nothing bad about these episodes at all, and they're kind of my favorite episodes because they truly know how to write for these episodes. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's because they're allowed a bit more, not gruesomeness or darkness or whatever, but like I guess for Halloween they're allowed a bit more leeway with that and things like that. But I love the Halloween episodes. My favorite Halloween episode is the Halloween train episode, because first of all it happens quite earlier on in the show and the early seasons are my favorite, but also the amount of storylines that kind of come to a, not a conclusion, but like come to a head in this episode is so good, and the people we have involved and things like that, and the fact that like Alison's body, well not body but you know Bethany's body, sorry, is like hidden in the bar and like falls through for everyone to see. What a moment, truly, what a moment. Like in these episodes I really feel the suspense and the tension so much more, and the involvement of like Wilden and Melissa and Garrett dying and Arya being next to his body. How cool is that? I'm sorry, like it is so good, these episodes. Like the Halloween episodes, they will write for their lives. There is no writer's strike today. They are in there and they are booked and they are busy. They're truly some of my favorite episodes, and I will go back randomly whenever I feel like it and just like watch the Halloween episodes, because like they're so good. They are really, really good. Along with this, kind of going into my next point, the Dollhouse episodes. Oh my goodness. The Dollhouse episodes were my favorite episodes of Pretty Little Liars ever, and maybe my favorite episodes of like a teen kind of drama ever that I've ever watched, because these episodes were truly amazing. The concept of having a dollhouse, because obviously the Liars had always been referred to as, you know, being dolls and puppets and things. So for them to actually build a real life dollhouse and to put them in that dollhouse and treat them like dolls, and kind of how Alison used to treat them, and kind of like their trauma with Alison, but also like what they looked like before and things like that. Like I loved these episodes truly so much, and it's such a shame that they were only there for like what, I think it was like 2-3 episodes. I just loved it. These are honestly my favorite episodes so much, and I think it's kind of like a hats off, I guess, to the writers for this, because the Dollhouse episodes are the most kind of highly rated episodes, and they're also such a fan favorite because everything was done so well. The tension, oh my god, the suspense. You know, like the scenes where like Charles is like standing behind Spencer. Oh my goodness, they were writing. That was so tense, because the fact we didn't know who it was, and it was a faceless villain, it was like, oh my god, like what's gonna go on here? I loved these episodes so much. My next favorite thing is Hannah's whole character development throughout the show. My favorite liar was Hannah, because I feel like I could connect to her a bit more because of similar things that we had gone through. So I really enjoyed Hannah's character development through the show. However, I will say post time jump, I don't really like it, but we're focusing on the positive, guys. I really liked kind of seeing her become kind of, you know, at the start, she's this girl who I think is putting on the popularity mask and is kind of hiding the fact that she's still quite self-conscious about herself. But obviously, because her and Mona are popular now, they kind of can't really act like that. At the start, we have that. And then obviously when she finds out about Mona being A, we have that whole thing about her. She still kind of wants to be friends with Mona, but can't really forgive and move on. But also, you know, she wants to help Mona because Mona's kind of losing her mind a little bit. So there's that whole battle there. And then her battle with forming a connection with her dad, her relationship with her mom, her relationship with Caleb. And then I really enjoyed when Alison came back, when she had kind of that identity crisis, because I did wonder, like, obviously I was dumb back in the day, so I'd always confuse Hannah and Alison for like the first like 5 episodes because I just didn't know who was who, which was stupid. You know, there was a scene at the start where Wilden kind of refers to Hannah being like, you kind of look like Alison, and I thought they would come back to that a bit more, but they didn't. But then they do when Alison comes back, and Hannah kind of has this identity crisis, and she becomes an alcoholic for like an episode. But like the thing of like cutting her hair and dyeing her hair, I think it's really realistic because Hannah held a lot of trauma from Alison, so obviously things would have to change. So I think it was actually really realistic. And I think, I don't know, I just think Hannah could connect with the audience a bit more, and I think did connect with the audience a bit more, just because I think her stories were a lot more, I don't know, common, I guess, type of thing. I don't really know, but yeah, I really liked seeing Hannah's character development throughout the show. I think that was something that I think she truly healed herself from everything she went through, and Hannah was a character I always wanted her to do well. Like if something was happening, I always wanted her to kind of get out of it and find a way out of it. I really rooted for her and Ashley as a family dynamic. Yeah, I love Hannah, and seeing her development was a really, really nice thing for me and a really positive thing for me throughout the show. You know that period where Alison came back and Mona died, and like A was like setting Alison up for the murder, and we had like the whole trial and things like that. Honestly, that was like one of my favorite times in the show. I'm sorry, like that was so good, and like some of my favorite episodes, and that's really what I wanted the show to carry on with Alison when she came back fully. But it didn't really last that long. But obviously Mona dying for me was like a shock, and I was like, oh my god, like this is like intense now, like stakes are here. And I think it was a very mysterious way to kind of end that chapter for Mona. But also like when we saw her body in like the back of the car and things like that, like tensions were very much high here. So to see setting Alison up for it and having the whole trial was really fun to me, because obviously like Alison had come back and everyone was still kind of wondering, is she the same person that she was? Is she still kind of evil? I think people were kind of waiting for her to be evil, so this was the time. Like the media was like, oh my god, like let's get her type of thing. But I really enjoyed seeing this side of Alison. I think it's the side of her that we saw pre-disappearance, and I do wish they would have kept this going, because I really, really did enjoy this kind of period of time. Of course Alison didn't do it, of course, but kind of seeing kind of like Alison lied here and there about things, and then I think A tricked us along with the show, the cops in the show, whatever, at some periods of time and things like that. But just seeing like the CCTV that was set up and kind of really trying to figure out, okay, is Mona dead? What's happened to Mona? Who did it? I think was really, really cool. So I think to set Alison up like that, because obviously she had come back, and I think us as an audience, along with the media in the show, wanted to see whether Alison would, the sun coming out, wanted to see whether Alison would continue that kind of evilness that she had and things like that. So this was really exciting to me. I think these episodes with the trial and things like that was some of my favorite episodes through the show, and I really enjoyed this period of time on the show so much. Then we have that Ezra reveal. You know, the reveal where we thought it was like an A reveal type of thing. I hate to say it, but they truly gagged with that. And, you know, when I was like 13, 14 watching this season, I truly was flabbergasted. I was like, oh my God, like what is going on here? And I think it had a lot of people kind of shocked because we obviously knew that Ezra was a creep, but it was like that kind of confirmed it. But it also confirmed that he's had intentions since the start. But we were kind of left to believe, was he on the A team? Is he A? What is he doing? And I think it just added a lot more tension to the show, and the way they did it, like him storming in and like looking around in shock. Like, I truly loved reveals like that, along with like the Toby reveal. Just, I really enjoy when main characters got revealed as things. Do you know what I mean? And I wish more things happened to main characters, because just having those reveals was like so cool. Like, going back to the Mona thing I just spoke about, obviously I know Mona didn't die, but having Mona as like a main character that like died was truly significant for the show. So to have Ezra, who, you know, they try and gaslight us and say he's a good guy and things like that. And back in the day when I was young, I kind of fell for it. And now that I'm an adult, I'm not falling for it. But like, truly, it's like, wow, like what is going on here? Because I was truly thinking like all the other reveals are kind of like side characters, really. Because even Mona's reveal as A, back then she was a side character. Cece was a side character. Alex we had never met. Noel was obviously involved in a lot of things. He was kind of a side character. Red, involved in things, was a side character. You get the hint, they're all side characters. So to have this kind of reveal as like a main character being involved in something, I really think was significant for the show. And I think they did this truly right, because I remember watching this for the first time when I was young, and I truly was flabbergasted. I was like, wow. I think kind of my next point goes along with that. This show truly knew how to keep the drama going. There were instances of like filler here and there. I think a lot of season 5 was filler, to be honest, but the show kind of knew how to kind of leave you on the cliffhanger to continue watching. And them ending every episode with seeing glimpses of A really helped that, and really helped kind of putting you in a bit more and making you kind of watch another episode after you said like that was the last one. And I truly think they knew how to keep the drama going. Like, throughout the entire show, I truly felt the drama, and apart from filler, I was kind of tense a lot because it was kind of like the suspense, and you didn't really know when things were coming and what was going on and things like that. So I think the good thing with the show, they really truly knew how to keep the drama going, and the writing allowed us to do that, and the cliffhangers allowed us to do that, but just the overall kind of setup of everything really allowed us to carry the drama and attention kind of throughout the entire show. And that's something that I really value in a show, because sometimes I'm watching shows and I'm just like, I don't see what's pulling me in here. Do you know what I mean? But I think Pretty Little Liars really kind of kept you going. Like, you wanted to find out who A was, and you wanted to find out all these things. That's why I think like the night that Alison went missing was a really good thing for the show to have, because like we wanted to know that so desperately. So you would have to like finish watching the show to find out. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think they truly knew how to keep the tension going, and that's all down to the writing, really. Just knowing how to end the episodes so that you pull the audience back in, I think was like really cool about it. So I know there is so much to this that doesn't make sense, but I actually really enjoyed the DiLaurentis, Drake, Hastings family tree. And like it winds me up because it doesn't make sense at all, but like it's actually really interesting. And if we didn't have this whole thing, like the show kind of like is a bit boring, but like just to have the family tree, which is so confusing, but also like it's kind of fun to like keep working out like what's going on. Like occasionally I remember that like Jason started the show with one sister, he ended the show with like 3 sisters who's also half cousins, and then what is Cece to Jason, cousin or something like that. Like I think it's really fun to think about, but also although it obviously doesn't make sense and things like that, I do take it as a positive because it did keep us thinking, and it kept us kind of going and figuring things out. Early in the show when they revealed that Jason was Peter's son, I think was really interesting, and that's when we're truly like, oh, like there's so much more to this family, and kind of exploring the DiLaurentis and Hastings families I think is really interesting because obviously they have the front of like, we have to be the perfect family, we can't be making any mistakes, things like that. But then when you really dive into these families, there's so much more behind the scenes to do with them, and I find it like really interesting. I really do. Like, I don't know, just the dynamics of them all, and kind of learning why things happened, like Jessica trying to set up Spencer for Alison's murder goes way deeper because obviously Mary Drake is her mom and things like that, and she's very much aware of it, and the affair between Peter and Jessica. Like there's so much to explore with these families, and I think the overall everything that happens in the family and the mystery that it keeps going, and us trying to figure out truly like the relationships in this family, I think actually adds really good things to the show, because it keeps you kind of like interested, because like I said, because you have to, you know, dive into these families a bit more. It's not just a simple thing, because kind of like with Emily's family it's quite simple, with Hannah's family it's quite simple, what you see is what you get. The Hastings and the DiLaurentis family dynamic and all the things that happened in the past and how everything kind of connects. Like I did a video about Jessica DiLaurentis kind of being like the actual villain of the show, because if you go back to it, like Jessica kind of starts everything. So to see that these families kind of kickstart stuff before the show even begins, I think is really, really cool. And although some of the family tree doesn't make sense, some of the timeline doesn't make sense, it's very confusing, I really enjoy it. I really, really enjoy it. The whole twin thing, the whole Alex Drake Spencer twin thing, I don't actually hate it. I don't mind if they had kept the twin thing. I think the twin thing is a good idea. And it kind of brings the books into it a little bit. And throughout the show, they drop hints of twins kind of being there, you know, in like the Halloween episode and things like that. So we could kind of see the twin thing coming. So I don't actually mind the twin situation, but I think if they had done it better, I think it would help the situation much more. But like I could see where they were going with it, and I actually do not mind it, and I think it's like okay. I think I would have liked it if they had done it properly. But I don't think it's such a negative thing. Like obviously I've complained about the ending because it like doesn't make sense, and I think other characters should have been but I don't think the twin thing was like bad. Like we could have done the twin thing, absolutely, just changed it up a bit and just made it make sense, because I did think twins were coming somewhere, I just didn't know when, because like I said, the show had teased it before, so it's not like they hadn't have like set up a twin situation going on. But I think they should have changed a lot of things regarding when Alex got introduced, or even maybe the person who had a twin, maybe it could have been someone else or something like that. But yeah, I don't think it's actually that bad, to be honest. I kind of like that the main characters aren't perfect. I kind of like it. I think it's a good thing that the writers did. It brings me back to 13 Reasons Why, which I watched. Jesus Christ, when did that come out? I must have been maybe around the same age, 13 maybe, when that came out. But I remember Hannah wasn't a perfect character, so everyone was kind of divided on Hannah. And I actually really like that. And I kind of think they've done the same with Pretty Little Liars, because even though my favourite character was Hannah, Hannah had done things that I don't agree with and had said things I don't agree with. And I think Aria as well, I want to do another video about Aria because I think there's so many times where she lets herself down, but she also lets her friends down. So Aria's not a perfect person. Spencer is very stubborn, very bitter. She says a lot of things that are quite mean, and she's obviously not perfect. Neither is Emily in that sense, and obviously Alison isn't either. So I kind of like that the main characters aren't perfect. I like that there's downsides to them because I think it's too realistic for the characters to be perfect. Do you know what I mean? So I like the characters having that kind of like 3D writing with them where obviously we want to root for them because they are the main characters of the show and they're the girls that we need to support. However, being able to disagree with things that the characters do or say, I think is really important as well. Because you get just like a double layer to them and you just get to kind of know them a bit more than just kind of like a good side. So I really enjoyed the writing for the characters when it came to that and presenting the good and the bad of every character, because I think it's realistic and I think it's honest, and it's just, I don't know, I really, really enjoyed it. Also, just to like kind of round it off, I really love the 2000s like atmosphere the show has, like with the clothing, with the music. Like I'm such a sucker for shows that were made like kind of 2010 time, like Vampire Diaries, Pretty Little Liars, things like that. I'm such a sucker for, because I think the atmosphere in the show regarding like I said, the outfits, the sets, the technology that's like outdated, and the music they use, I really, really like it. I'm such a sucker for these TV shows because I really don't like when TV shows become modern. I sound like, oh my god, I sound like such an old person when I'm going to say this, but I really enjoy, like, you know, like Vampire Diaries and Pretty Little Liars, the phones they had back then were like Nokias and Blackberries, and I really enjoyed seeing that. I still, now when I rewatch, I prefer seeing that compared to, you know, towards the end of Pretty Little Liars when the world was becoming a bit more modern. The show kept up with that, and obviously I understand completely why they were trying to keep up with it, but I didn't like seeing, you know, texting them on smartphones and things like that. I loved just seeing the vibe of the early seasons with the lack of like modern technology and the clothing to like represent this. Also like the hairstyles on the girls and like the cameras they use and things like that. Like it's such a picky thing, not picky, but like such a small thing, I guess. But like I like that stuff, and I'm such a sucker for TV shows like that. I really like it. I think this is, oh my god, another bit of me that's going to sound old here. I'm lucky enough that I've kind of had two parts of living in the modern world. I got my first phone when I was 12. My first like smartphone. And prior to that, I had like Nokia, like slide up phones and like the flip phones and things like that. But even then I wouldn't really use my phone. So for 12 years, I lived a life that we didn't really have technology. My household, we didn't really have internet until quite like late on in that aspect compared to other people during the time. So I never really, for like 12 years, I was able to live, you know, the life of like going outside. This sounds so old of me. Oh my god, I'm becoming an adult. But like, yeah, going outside and having to cycle to my friends and knock on their door, see if they want to come out and things like that, and living a life without technology and social media, and like just actually going out and enjoying life and things like that. It always like that's, I really like Stranger Things because like the early seasons, because when I see them all riding their bikes in the sunset, I used to do that with my friends and things like that before technology came along. But then my second part of my life, for like the past 10 years, I've also got to live the life of modern technology. I do a lot of gaming, and just things like that. So I've kind of got to see both parts of it. I'm kind of like, I really like it. I feel like I was like the perfect age and the perfect like generation for it. I was born in 2003. So I saw both kind of versions of the world there was technology when I was obviously in the 2000s and stuff, but like I didn't really have it growing up. And, you know, I'd play with dolls and toys, and I'd go to Toys R Us and things like that. And compared to kids now who obviously grow up just surrounded by social media and stuff. So I have seen both aspects of the world, and I think I do enjoy the technology side. And I don't think I could survive without technology, because the world has been built around consuming technology and having technology available 24/7. But I do miss the times where technology wasn't really a concerning thing, and you could go outside without your phone, or, you know, whatever. Like, I always have my phone in my hand now just to check the time, or what if I get a notification or whatever. But like back then I could leave the house without my phone for like 8-9 hours a day whilst I go out with my friends and stuff. So I have seen both aspects of the world. So that's why now the TV shows that have, you know, they include like Snapchat and Instagram. Like, I think the Gossip Girl reboot is a good example of what I'm trying to say here. But I watched, I think, the first 2 episodes of the Gossip Girl reboot, and I just stopped watching it because I don't like the modern aspect in the TV shows now. But I know that is not their fault, because they're trying to keep up with the times. I totally understand. But I don't like when shows like include social media, when they're including Instagram and Snapchat and whatever, because I want to get away from that. I don't want to watch that in my shows as well. So, you know, shows that were made in 2010, like Pretty Little Liars, I really value, because for the majority of the show, we didn't have the modern social media world and technology and stuff. And so I really enjoyed that part of the show. And still now, when I rewatch it and we go through that early seasons before we have the influx of social media and modern stuff, I really like it. And it's like my favorite things about the show, because I don't know, I truly just love social media, and like pre that. Do you know what I mean? I sound like such an old person. This is going to sound like such an old person rant. But I feel like just because I've seen both sides of the world, and I've experienced both sides of the world, living before my life had technology and afterwards, I like my TV shows to get away from that. So I think that's now why, this is so off topic now, but girl, we're having a chat over FaceTime. Let's chill. So I think now with modern teenage shows, I think that's why they struggle to retain an audience, but also have that impact, because everything to me now blends into one, where we have this teenage TV show, and it's just kind of like social media and technology and, you know, modern times and stuff. And I personally just don't value things like that, because it's just not my personal taste. So that's why Pretty Little Liars for me was so good in that aspect, and having the outfits and just like the filming and the setting and things like that to represent that, I think is like one of my favorite things in the show. But yeah, sorry I went on a little tangent there, to be honest, but we're just yapping together. Do you know what I mean? We're just having a little yap along session, to be honest. But yeah, I would love to hear what did you like about the show? What was your favorite aspect regarding the show? Do you have any comments on mine or anything like that? Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.